Hey guys, Blaze Football Observer here, bringing you another Premier League preview show. You know the drill by now. This is the video where I predict all of the upcoming round of fixtures that's happening within the Premier League. This weekend there are some interesting, intriguing, and should be some entertaining encounters. And of course, the main event, which I saved to the very end, is a very, very big derby that's coming up. So without further ado, let's begin, and we're going to begin with Friday's evening fixture. Yeah, we're going to begin with Friday's evening encounter. This will see Leeds host West Ham at Ellen Road. So, fantasy football managers, get your teams ready for this weekend. Remember, there is a Friday night kickoff. Last time out, both teams suffered 3-1 losses, with Leeds losing 3-1 to Chelsea, whilst West Ham lost by the same scoreline to Manchester United. It's an interesting game ahead, this one, a match which could go any which way. Leeds have proven to be tough opposition for the majority of teams so far this campaign, whilst West Ham, of course, have probably performed above everyone's expectations so far this season, with all due respect. But it's prediction time, and I'm going to have to say that whilst I could see either side winning this one, my gut instinct is telling me that this is going to end with both teams sharing the points. So that's what I'm going to go with, and that's why I'm going to say that this game will end 1-1 come the final whistle. Next, we move on to Crystal Palace taking on top of the table Tottenham at Selhurst Park on Sunday afternoon. Both sides were victorious last time out in their respective games, with Palace thumping West Brom 5-1 last Sunday, and then later on that same day, Tottenham claimed bragging rights and the 3 points over Arsenal in the North London derby when Jose Mourinho's side won 2-0. Palace on their day and in games where they aren't expected to really get anything out of, and often upset the odds. Whilst this will be a huge game for Tottenham, this is the kind of thing where the longer they remain top of the table in contention for the title, around them top 4 spaces, the more talk of title contenders continues to mount. And these are the kind of games that Spurs in the past have tended to have slipped up in. So it was a big game for both sides, this one. My prediction for this game is either Tottenham will somehow manage to get past Palace here by any means necessary, or a draw is a certain possibility. Like I say, Spurs have a tendency to slip up in these types of fixtures, whilst Palace can upset the odds against the bigger teams. But I think that Roy Hodgson and Crystal Palace may get something from this game. I just got a gut feeling that maybe Palace will get something from this game. And like I say, Spurs winning wouldn't be a massive surprise, but I think Palace may be able to steal a point here, and that's why I'm going to say that this game will end 1-1. Next, we move on to Sunday's midday fixture, and St Mary's is the host as Southampton take on Sheffield United. VAR drama helped Southampton get back to winning ways on Monday night as they managed to beat Brighton by 2-1. Whilst for Sheffield United, they are of course still looking for their first victory of the season, as they currently sit rock bottom of the Premier League following last week's defeat to Leicester City, in which Jamie Vardy scored a late winner for the Foxes there. This, on paper, seems to only point in one direction, and that is of course a Saints victory, with more doom and gloom as a result being heaped onto the Blades. But of course, games are not won on paper, are they? So United have probably been a little unfortunate to have not have accumulated more points over the season, but individual errors and mistakes have cost them dearly. And really, does anyone believe that they're going to beat Leicester here and claim their first victory of the season? I certainly don't, and that's why I'm sticking with my prediction that Southampton will win this game. And I think the Saints, with Danny Ings back in the squad and back up front, back among the goals, of course, will get the 3 points here and heap more pressure onto Sheffield United and Chris Wilder. So I'm going to say that the Saints will win this game by 2-0. And now we come to a West Midlands derby which takes place at Molineux as Wolves take on Aston Villa in Saturday's lunchtime fixture. Wolves were thrashed 4-0 last time out by Liverpool, whilst Aston Villa were last in action 12 days ago, as their originally scheduled game last weekend was against Newcastle, but because of the Newcastle COVID outbreak, it was postponed, so that will be rescheduled. So there's been a 12-day gap between Villa's last fixture and this one. This game looks like it's going to be a very interesting and intriguing one, an exciting encounter possibly in store to watch, as West Midlands pride is of course on the line. It's going to be a feisty derby, I'm sure, but it's being contested between two teams who have shown flashes of brilliance so far this season, but ultimately, like a lot of teams, they are in that limbo of teams that are very inconsistent right now. So, what is my prediction? Well, I don't know. Like with a lot of games over not just this weekend, but with like last weekend and the weekend before, I simply do not have a clear-cut idea. It's another game that could go any which way, a difficult game to call, blah, blah, blah. You know the story. I'm torn between all three possible outcomes. But if I had to stick my neck out on the line and make a decision, I'm going to say that this game ends in a draw. I'm going to say that this game ends in a 2-2 draw. But I do have to question whether the extended break of Villa will either help them, or will there be a bit of rustiness there to shake off for the away side. So be interesting to see if that's a factor or not, but it's possibly a factor to keep in mind nonetheless. Jumping ahead now to one of Sunday's evening fixtures as Brendan Rodgers' Leicester take on Graham Potter's Brighton at the King Power Stadium. Jamie Vardy scored a late winner last time out for Leicester as they beat Sheffield United by 2-1 last Sunday, whilst on Monday night Brighton were defeated 2-1, same scoreline by Southampton. This looks set to be an open and an interesting encounter. I think these are two sides that like to get the ball down and play, and I think with the open and expansive style of football that both teams like to set out and perform every week, it might be an entertaining game ahead, this one. My prediction for this game, though, is a Leicester win. I like Brighton, but I think that up front they lack a prolific and consistent goal-scoring threat to really trouble Leicester here. And of course, in contrast, that's something that of course Leicester definitely have in Jamie Vardy. And I think with that in mind, that firepower is more consistent and reliable than what the Seagulls have, and therefore it tips the scales in their favour. But I do think it'll be a good game regardless, but I am going to have to go with my original prediction with a Leicester victory, Jamie Vardy to be among the goals, and the result to be 2-1 in favour of the home side. Next, we come to Saturday night's matchup that will see Everton face Chelsea at Goodison Park. The Toffees come into this game off the back of a 1-1 draw to Burnley last week, whilst the Blues are one of the league's informed teams right now, as they find themselves currently sat in third place in the table, and especially following last weekend's victory over Leeds, where the Blues were victorious by 3-1. The wheels have somewhat fell off Everton's season somewhat. Their good and promising start to the season kind of crumbled a little bit over the past couple of months or so, whilst for Chelsea and Frank Lampard, they've grown from strength to strength over the course of this season so far, and it makes for an interesting game to watch and play out between Carlo Ancelotti and, of course, Frank Lampard. Jumping straight into it, though, I think the Blues will win this one. I think the Blues will have no problem in getting the 3 points here. Of course, it is possible that Ancelotti comes into this game with Everton and manages to somehow take a point or something and upset Chelsea a little bit, but given the recent form of both teams, the Blues' tight defence and their strong attack, I'm going to have to go for a Chelsea victory and say that the Blues will win this game 3-1, with Timo Werner and Dominic Calvert-Lewin both getting on the score sheet for their respective clubs. The Gunners take on the Clarets in our next game of focus as Arsenal face Burnley on Sunday night at the Emirates Stadium. Arsenal's season is turning rather sour and dismal, and it's especially apparent following last week's defeat to bitter rivals Tottenham in the North London derby, as Jose Mourinho's side, of course, were 2-0 winners on that day, whilst Burnley picked up a point by drawing 1-1 with Everton. It's a must-win game, this. It's a definite must-win game, this, for Arsenal, you feel, but it's going to be tough. We know about the physicality of Burnley. We know how direct they are. It's a different test for Arsenal, this one, but a strong one. Whilst for Burnley, the pressure is off them, essentially. The pressure is off them, and it's all onto Arsenal, and that may be something they can use to their advantage. My prediction is that while I like Arsenal and I like Arteta, I think that he's doing the best he can in a tough situation so far at the club, and I think, you know, maybe he's being treated a little too harshly by some. They're probably going to treat him even more harshly if my prediction comes off, because I am going to say that this game ends in a draw. I think Arsenal will struggle to break down a compact and tight Burnley defence. And of course, Burnley will look to counter and use set pieces to their advantage, and obviously the counter-attack, which is why I'm going to have to say that this game will end in a draw and say that it will be 1-1 come the final whistle. The Magpies take on the Baggies in this 13th versus 19th encounter as Newcastle face West Brom at St James's Park, which I have to say at the time of recording is still going ahead. There has been a bit of talk that maybe this may be another Newcastle game that is called off due to the recent COVID outbreak that has hit Newcastle over the past couple of weeks. We wait and see, but as of right now, this game is going ahead. On Saturday, Newcastle's last Premier League fixture would have come 15 days ago, where the Magpies were 2-0 winners over Crystal Palace at the end of November, that was. Whilst their opponents, West Brom, coincidentally were battered 5-1 by Crystal Palace just over a week later after losing to Newcastle. Will Newcastle make it 2 wins on the trot here, or will the Baggies pick up their second victory of the season? I can honestly see a draw here. If I had to call a winner, I would be leaning more towards the Magpies. I'm leaning more towards the home side, Newcastle. But I think for whatever reason, West Brom will manage to gain a point here from this fixture, in all honesty. And that is why I'm going to have to predict another 1-1 draw. Our penultimate game on this list sees Liverpool travel to London, where Fulham will be waiting for them as their opponents at Craven Cottage. The Reds go into this game joint top of the table, of course, with Tottenham separated only by goal difference following their 4-0 victory over Wolves last Sunday, whilst Fulham lost 2-0 to Manchester City last Saturday. This game seems to be one of the more predictable games on this list of fixtures to put your money on this weekend. Liverpool, of course, go into this one as clear favourites, and it will be a struggle for Fulham to really pull off any kind of good result here, you feel. So Fulham will be relying on their players digging deep and digging in and putting in a strong performance. And not only that, but Fulham do have the advantage of having 2,000 fans in the stadium, allowed into the stadium to play their part as well. So we'll wait and see if that has any kind of effect on the game as well. But despite that, despite the possibility of Fulham putting in a high quality performance, despite the fact that Fulham supporters will be allowed in the stadium this weekend, I personally cannot look past Liverpool in this game. I'm going to say that the Reds will win this game 3-0 with Mohamed Salah amongst the goals for the away side. And finally, it's the big one. It's the highlight of this round of Premier League fixtures. It's the main event of the weekend. I am, of course, talking about the Manchester derby, Manchester United versus Manchester City. The venue is Old Trafford. The time is Saturday evening. United, last time out in the Premier League, were victorious. They managed to beat West Ham 3-1 last weekend. But fast forward a few days later, unfortunately in the Champions League for them, They crashed out after losing to RB Leipzig and will now be playing in the Europa League when the UEFA competitions resume in February. As for City, they were victorious in the League 2 last time out when they beat Fulham 2-0. But of course, we know that this derby, all form goes out the window. We know that this is a derby that is just based off nothing but how you play on the day. Who wants it more? Who wants them bragging rights? The red half, the blue half? All will be revealed on Saturday. United did the double over City, if you remember correctly, last season. Solskjaer seems to have had the upper hand over Guardiola in recent meetings when it significantly mattered. And let's face it, we can kind of tell how this game is going to go because both sides only know one way of playing. City will see a lot of the ball. United will sit deep, attempt to soak up as much pressure as they can, and obviously hit City on the counter-attack. A tactic that has worked very effectively and in favour of the Red Devils in these types of fixtures in the past. My prediction for this game, though, is that in knowing how this game is likely to unfold and the blueprint that's been set out, United at the very least pick up a point here, I believe. A Manchester derby, both sides wanting bragging rights over the other. United knowing how to beat City from recent encounters between these two teams. I don't think City win this game, in all honesty. I think maybe a point is certainly possible, but I don't think they win this game. But I'm going to stick my neck out on the line here and say that United win this game. United bounce back from Champions League misery and they win this game. I think United will get the 3 points here, and I'm going to predict a 3-2 victory in favour of the Red Devils. And with that, we wrap up this Premier League preview show. But of course, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions of one guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of this round of fixtures? What are your predictions of the outcomes of all of these matches? I'd like to know your thoughts, comments, predictions, opinions, you name it, whatever, in the comment section below. I am sure they will all make for interesting reading. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Premier League preview show, and I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.